over time. And the thing is, it's really important for this, is the number one factor in longevity. The number one is lung capacity. So this big studies have been done with thousands of people over the course of decades, proving the number one factor. I mean, car accidents don't count. That's an accident. But the number one thing that will shorten your life more than anything else is losing your lung capacity. And here's the thing. When
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we have the mystical man himself, Nate. Now, Nate is a new friend of mine. I absolutely love what he's about. You guys are going to learn some really, really cool stuff. This guy's story is incredible. He's a multifaceted entrepreneur. In my eyes, he is a spiritual guru, and he is a true change maker and impact creator in this world. I'm extremely excited to nerd out with Nate today, share his story with you, and tell you all about his business. Nate, welcome to the 1%.
Ben, Shane, thank you so much for having me, and hello to everybody out there that's watching or listening right now. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you guys.
So Nate, Shane has plenty of questions because I left him on a cliffhanger before the call. And now the audience hopefully has a bunch of questions too. Can you give us a good background of you? And of course, we're going to get more into your story, but share with the listeners, share with Shane who it is that you are, what you do, and what's your mission.
Okay, fantastic. So my spiritual journey started when I was about 12 years old. I was sitting on the floor of my father's den with his loaded rifle pointed at my head, and I was very close to pulling that trigger. So growing up in a very small country cowboy town in Utah as the only non-Mormon kid in my grade, when I went to kindergarten, I became a target immediately because I wasn't like them. I didn't go to their church, and I didn't fit in. And so I became the target of some pretty hellacious bullying on a daily basis, sometimes even during the summer, and sometimes even by the kids' parents. And so this was relentless. And I can say that my self-esteem was shattered. I would then become a bully to my younger brothers because I didn't know where to take it out. I mean, kids being kids, we just don't know how to talk about this stuff, especially in the 70s and 80s. You just really didn't have that outlet. And so there I am. I'm sitting on this floor with this gun, and I'm about to make a permanent decision based upon temporary feelings. And the reason I mention that is because that night is when I had my first out-of-body experience. I couldn't go through with pulling that trigger because I couldn't do that to my mom and dad. And so I was still just heartbroken because I knew the bullying was just going to keep going. And it actually did. It kept going until I was about 16 and could actually get my own license and drive someplace to a bigger school where there were more open minds, I'll say. And so when I started having these out-of-body experiences, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just knew that I would float up out of my body. I'd see myself there, and sometimes I'd travel through the roof and I'd be able to go different places. And I knew I wasn't just dreaming because I was just awake, and it was as real as right now is to me or to you. It's as real gets. And when I was 16, the very first thing, when other boys were out trying to impress girls and buy cars and stuff like that, my very first purchase was binaural beat brainwave entrainment tracks from the Monroe Institute, which is they specialize in out-of-body travel. And they've even trained the CIA agents back in the 70s how to spy on the Russians and where their missile silos were from thousands of miles away. Psychic.
Oh, I want to jump in on that one real quick, guys. You could actually check that out. The cool thing is those are declassified documents that the CIA has now put out on the internet, so you could actually read about that. It's real. But go ahead, Nate, go.
And I've always been the person that I'm like, show me, don't just tell me, because I grew up being tortured by people who did that based upon belief only.
Yeah.
And so with a mom who was a nurse, dad who was an EMT and a social worker, well-educated, I really wanted more of the proof, not just the what, but also the how. And so I went on this mission, and I'm still on this mission to find out what's real. Like, what is really real about our perception and in the universe? We know that, well, the ancient Egyptians said we have 360 senses, not just 5. So what have we forgotten in 5,000 plus years? I'd say a whole lot. since then. I mean, they were able to, we don't know how they built the pyramids. We still can't do that with our equipment now. We could not do that. But they also were able to do brain surgery successfully. They were able to have light bulbs and like transmit electricity. We know this through the hieroglyphics and the carvings now. And people have been able to reproduce what they were able to do. So there is a lot in these ancient techniques and ancient ways that has been lost to the annals of history. So for me, why that's really relevant is I always wanted to be a ninja and a Jedi ever since I was little and saw Star Wars and ninja movies. And when I was 23, I got the opportunity to actually step into that world. But it came through, I'll say, synchrodestiny, not just a synchronicity. It changed my life. And what happened was I ordered a course at a Black Belt magazine that guaranteed me inner power in 2 weeks. 2 weeks for cheat, and I could get my money back if it didn't work. Well, hey, I'm American. We want it quick, right? And so I got this little pamphlet that had like some stick figures drawn in there. It was totally BS. But it came with a VHS tape. And on that tape, it was an Indonesian martial arts demonstration, like a documentary. And it showed the most amazing, beautiful, like brutal martial arts I had ever seen. And I'd been training in martial arts off and on in different systems since I was 17, and I was 23 at this time, so a while. Well, when I saw people who could break stacks of steel bars and ice literally 15 feet tall, I mean, it was nuts. I'm going, these are teeny weeny little people, and they're just like smiles on their face, having a great time doing this. And I thought that was pretty cool. But then I saw people who could see blindfolded or being blind. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? These people were driving cars and riding motorcycles through traffic in Jakarta. They had military people who were fighting bare knuckles, full contact with hoods cinched around their head. And then they could even shoot targets out of people's hands with guns. It was nuts. But then it showed blind people who could read printed material. And I'm like, okay, so the scientific prove it to me kind of person inside me is just like, this is bullshit. It can't be real. The Jedis don't really exist, right? But the other part of me that's been having these non-local functions of consciousness, these out-of-body experiences or remote viewing, and I'm studying all this stuff, all of that points to, yes, it is possible. So I was kind of conflicted there between belief and disbelief. But then the next day, it was like my higher self came and reached down and said, okay, here's your life path, and put me on it. And I watched a blind woman almost get killed trying to cross the street with her dog in front of my car. And it hit me just like thunder. Like, I need to find those Indonesian people and help her. Now, I actually never found out who she was, but it set me on this course that I was so driven that I went and I found those people. It took a couple of weeks to track them down because this was the early days of the internet. So dial-up internet, that was like 14.4 speed, was like awesome. Well, I found them and I reached out to them. I found somebody there who could speak English, and I sponsored the very first demonstration of this art, which is called Merpati Putih. Now, it sounds funny, but Merpati Putih means white dove in Indonesian. And this is a cultural heritage of the Indonesian people. Kind of like if you say baseball here, not everybody's played baseball, but everybody knows what baseball is. You say Merpati Putih in Indonesia, everybody knows what it is. But they have trained over 1 million people to date, so I'm told. So it's big. But they had never allowed a non-Indonesian person to learn it, ever. It was a cultural secret held within a royal family of Indonesia for 500 years, released to the Indonesian public in 1963 during what they call the Indonesian genocide, which was, well, just put this way, their government slaughtered over 500,000 people in 6 months. I mean, we can't even imagine what that's like, but that was their reality. So the 10th generation heir and 2 of his sons released this to the Indonesian people to help them, first of all, defend themselves. Second of all, to realize our energetic nature, that if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. We're all connected. We're all the same being, having different experiences through different lenses in order to send an experience back to source. But it's not until people actually take that opportunity to sit down and go within themselves that they actually start to feel and understand that. And that's what this system really helps people do, among other things. So I brought Merpati Putih here, and I got to see the blind people do this. I got to see blindfolded people do this. And they started training me in a little bit of the breath work, which was just, I mean, like nothing I'd ever experienced. And when they were leaving, the chairman of Merpati Putih told me, Nate, I talked with the heirs and they said that they're going to allow you to be the first person to learn this outside Indonesia. Now, at this time, there were thousands of schools in Indonesia, but never trained anybody outside. And I'm going to say, terror. You think you want to be a Jedi until a Jedi Master actually says, okay. You're like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, once again, synchronicity. There just happened to be a certified trainer of this art in Salt Lake City, about an hour south of me. 3 people in the US that could train me, 1 in Washington, 1 in LA, and 1 an hour away from me. It's another one of those things where like there are no accidents. And so I started training with him, and a few weeks later, one of my younger brothers joined me. And then together, the two of us, like 2 lions, we went across the world numerous times to Indonesia to test and train. We brought the heirs over here to personally inaugurate our school and train us and test us personally themselves, which is kind of like a first, like a brown belt getting tested by the 10th degree black belts. I mean, it just doesn't happen in the martial arts world. And so huge honors were bestowed upon us. And then over the next 20 years, we trained people from age 5 to 85, and we owned one of the largest martial arts schools in the country and meditation academies in the United States. We did things that no human has ever done before. And, it really is something straight out of a sci-fi or like one of those hero's journey movies. It's going to make an amazing series of movies. Anybody who wants to jump on this, there's never been a story like this. There have been many, I think, maybe similar, but not documented the way that we have. And so we brought this over here as a martial art. So at its core, it's a martial art with 5 aspects: fighting and forms, very similar to other martial arts. That looks different, but every martial art has those 2 things. The other 3 things, though, I found sorely lacking in any martial art in the country. The first one was true inner power or chi development, using a form of breath holding and breath work unlike any other system anybody out there has ever heard of. I can guarantee you that. We make more electricity in our body quickly. So it's not a 10-year process. It's like maybe a 6-month process where people can break steel files and steel bars after just a couple months of doing this without injury, sometimes just barely touching it. It's pretty amazing. The health benefit that comes along with that, though, is incredible. So without getting too nerdy, it activates our mitochondria. These are things that have been proven in Indonesia with studies, because it is used by every single branch of Indonesia's military, including their special forces, uses Merpati Putih breath work and meditation. Every one of them for about 50 years now. So it's a proven technology. And so mitochondrial activation, it helps us produce more red blood cells. It creates more oxygen synthesis and transfer throughout the body. It helps us think clearer. The list is like 5 miles long of what this does just on a physical level, never mind the mental and the spiritual. So that's the big separator right there, is the inner power generation, but then also energy healing. I can't tell you how many people with asthma, COPD, long COVID, emphysema, cancer have trained in Merpati Putih and have changed nothing else about their life, and then not had to use medicine anymore permanently, or they were in remission completely. That was kind of a regular occurrence. And it actually makes sense physically, because cancer is anaerobic mostly, so it doesn't like our oxygen-rich environments, and we oxygenate in a very specific way. Just makes sense that we'll starve the cancer out with oxygen, right? But I can't make many medical claims or promises, but nobody can for that stuff. But I can tell you, everybody feels better when they do it, 100% of the time. And then the last thing, right? So fighting, forms, energy generation, healing, and then the PSY-OPS, the seeing without eyes skill, which very few people can do. But that's the thing is, Vin, you might be just amazing at visual art, and I'm having trouble drawing a stick figure. It looks like a puddle of noodles, but I'm a musician, and that's where my heart is. That's where my natural talent is. We all have I'll call it a future human power, and this system helps people unlock that reliably. That's why I love it. It's just a method. It's not just a shot in the dark. You don't have to be born in a certain place at a certain time under a certain moon to get this stuff. This is tapping into those 360 senses the Egyptians knew about, right? And so when I was able to do that and start training in this, and we started broadening our horizons, training in Indonesia, we're on a roll, man. And then COVID. Oh boy, that decimated the martial arts industry, where over half of the martial arts schools in the country closed within 3 months. We remember those days. And so this thing, nobody wants to spar with a mask on and nobody wants to spar over Zoom. How about that? Got you. No, you didn't. No, yeah, I did. I got him. Didn't work. So the attrition rate was terrible. And so we had to switch. And we switched over to the vibrational quantum vision, where you can see without your eyes. Well, okay. So a few people we were able to train to do that. But the thing is the other people that were able to unlock their healing abilities, to put their hands on people and transfer energy, balance their energetic flow so their body can heal itself, really is what's happening. Or being able to remote view and accurately tell where things are thousands of miles away, like to the point where look under the rug right here on top of the desk, and that's where your keys are. And I hear, holy shit, over the phone. They're like, what? Yeah, stuff like that. We all have more that we can do and be than we've been given permission to believe or been trained. But that doesn't mean it's not there. And so that's one part of the integrated ascension method that I do. That's just one. The other part. So
Well,
that's
let's wait. Let's pause you there. Let's pause you there. We could probably got a bunch of questions on part one, because there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, Shane, I'm curious. So I've heard Nate's story, and I loved hearing all of this stuff for the first time. As a first time listener, what's your thought on what Nate's been able to accomplish and achieve in his life? I find it to be very interesting.
I kind of wanted to have him keep going. I just want to sit down with you all day and really hear this out. I think, as a lot of people, especially in American culture, they want to see it, right? They want to actually see this before they actually believe it, because your story to a regular common person who has not experienced anything like this sounds too good to be true. And I personally have not had an outer body experience. And those things that, especially from a religious standpoint, it sounds skeptical to me. And the fact, but that's why I say, I think understanding those types of things, I personally believe that what we use for our brain and the capabilities, we're only using what everybody says is 10 to 20% of your brain. And unlocking, a higher caliber of that, the things that you can do, like that movie Limitless. And I hate comparing it to a movie, but I actually think that is actually true, is unlocking it for the capabilities that you can do. I believe that. And I just want to see it. I think that's what it is. And sorry, I have more questions that are coming to this, but I wanted to make this statement because your story is very fascinating, and that's why I just wanted you to keep going, because I've never heard something like this before.
Yeah.
And my first thing is, show me videos on this, and where can I go to actually see this happen? Because just like you in your first time, when you heard somebody that was able, when you watched that videotape, reading a book that was blind or blindfolded or fighting or shooting targets, what?
Mm-hmm.
Eh,
That's what I thought.
yeah.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
So, yeah. And just like you did, you flew to Indonesia and you wanted to see this happen. So my first question is, where,
Okay.
how can we make this possible?
Yeah. So when people go to my website, they're going to get the opportunity to see quite a bit. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't train in the vibrational skill like that anymore. I do other things as well that helps people unlock what they're supposed to be good at. Because, and I'm going to tell you this straight honestly, there are only a few people that can actually do that skill. It's true. But we all have a different skill. So I like to help nurture whatever somebody's intrinsic natural talent is going to be and help really get that going. So that's where people can actually go to my website and experience a class for free. They can actually try this. And I'm about to release my new app where people will also be able to go and have me right in the palm of their hand and actually take me with them wherever they want. So I do have different courses and things that take people on that journey. So this is the thing that I love, Shane, and I love people who are skeptical. I'm not a big fan of cynics because you just can't make anything right, and they're always going to be like, screw that, no, boo. But I was skeptical too, and I still am skeptical. That's the thing of that. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night, So this is something where I want to make sure that when people do this, they understand it from a knowledge point of view, because belief is a terrible substitute for knowledge. And that's one thing about this. You don't have to believe this. If you have a body, it will work. If you don't, I really can't help you. But if you have a body, it's going to work. So whether it's your immune system, sensing energy, more stamina, better recovery from athletic endeavors, recovery from injury and healing in much faster time, there are so many benefits to this that regardless of whether somebody believes it or not, one of my trainers, my original trainer, he had a great saying. Now, this is when he was still learning English. He said, stupider is better. Now, meaning don't overthink it. Do it, and your body, your subconscious knows what to do. Now, as far as your brain is concerned, what we're finding now more with the non-local functions of consciousness and the quantum physics that is now, that's the biggest study of science that there is anything that has to do with quantum. That our body, this is a transmitter and a receiver, but our consciousness, we know for a fact, it is not housed in our body. Our consciousness is not here. It's apparently everywhere. But this is a place that focuses at where we get to experience in the physical world through our five senses and the other ones if we develop those. And so that's a really important distinction to make, because if my real me is not inside my body, then what is my body? And so if you're familiar with Joe Dispenza and his work, he calls it an instrument of consciousness, and it really is, so that we get to have these experiences. And then who knows? I just actually interviewed one of the top geneticists in the world earlier last week, and he can now, technologies to the point where he can take a swab of your cheeks and he can line out your entire DNA code, and he can tell you your temperament. He can tell you what your talents in life are based upon your genes. And so there's so much that we don't understand. And so what I'm most excited for is to have people go to my website, jump on for a free class. I hold free webinars every couple of weeks so people can actually have a training webinar with me. I'm not about selling you a bunch of fluff or not much stuff. I'm like, these are life changers for people, and they get to experience this for themselves. Now, that said, some of these skills, just like if you want to be let's say a concert violinist, you're not going to go to a workshop and come out playing like Yitzhak Perlman or like one of the best violinists in the world. It takes discipline. It takes a lot of time. It takes years of dedicated effort and sacrifice. It just will. It's like anything else, right? So that's something that a lot of people are not prepared for, is they think that it's going to be fast and easy. I can tell you this, it's fast compared to anything else, and it's worth it. But is it easy? Have you guys ever done breath work before, like Wim Hof or like holotropic? Obviously, Vin, you've done Tony's priming, right?
Yeah, I've done a bit of breath work before. It's an interesting experience for me, to say the least. It's makes me freaking dizzy, so I don't really like doing it that much.
This is not that. Because that's doing is hyperventilation, or superventilation, actually, because hyperventilation is an automatic response to a threat. So if you're being chased by a lion, you're going to hyperventilate to have enough energy to get away. But when you're doing it on purpose, I've heard it called superventilation, and it makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, it makes you dizzy. What I teach is hypoventilation. So it's based upon intermittent hypoxia, which has been shown. So the health benefits are crazy. In fact, the 2019 Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology was won by scientists studying intermittent hypoxia and the benefits on cancer and diabetes and other health conditions. The results are so powerful, they won the freaking Nobel Prize for it. So holding your breath is good if you're doing it acutely and on purpose. However, we all know that sleep apnea will lead to strokes and heart disease and all kinds of bad things, right? And now we have another phenomenon called email apnea. That's like a legit term, where people are holding their breath while they're scrolling and while they're typing emails. They're not breathing while they're working. And it has the same bad health benefits as sleep apnea. So you don't have to wear a CPAP all the time. But becoming conscious and aware of your breath is, first of all, one of the best ways to de-stress. And stress is known, it's throughout the medical community as the cause, most, if not all disease. Stress is. So if we're able to de-stress and get our nervous system and our immune system functioning properly, we're just going to live a longer time and have a better experience here on the planet. And that ultimately, guys, that's my real purpose, is to help especially business leaders who have breathing issues, because a lot of people do. We have like over 33 million people with asthma in the country, not to mention long COVID.
Wow.
Emphysema. There's a lot of people that can't breathe, and it's gone up by, I think it was 50% in kids between, I think it was like 2005 and 2015, because we have poisonous water, food, air, our own thoughts. We have all these frequencies that come in and bombard our system. But I mean, asthma was fairly rare, just kind of like autism. Now you've got these huge rates, and it just makes sense. If you're pooping in the fish bowl and you're a fish and you just keep doing it, and all those toxins are going to eventually wear your system down. And so that's my biggest passion, guys, is to help people's minds and their bodies be strong enough, not to just survive, but to thrive in these coming changes that are happening right now. Because otherwise we're just going to be sicker, and that leads to us being deader. So that was interesting.
Well, I think you called out to the right demographic, especially for this podcast being, primarily entrepreneurs and business owners, the people who actually are optimistic and not pessimistic, that actually, if they want to do something, they will check it out and they'll continue moving that path. Yeah, that's the best part about entrepreneurs and business owners. Well, at least the successful ones is they're always open-minded.
Yeah.
It was funny. I forgot the exact terminology you used, but David Blaine, I know he's a famous magician. He actually did breath work, and it was the exact terminology. What was it called?
Hyperventilation or superventilation.
No, the one you do.
So so that would be hypoventilation or intermittent hypoxia.
Okay. I don't know if the exact terminology there, but I know he had breathwork trainer for the last 6 months, and he was able to beat the world record for holding his breath underwater live on camera. And
so do you know how long he held his breath for?
It was an insane amount of time. I think it was over 10 minutes.
Because somebody else, just so you know, a new world record was set a couple of years ago. 24 minutes, 34 seconds by a Croatian freediver.
Okay. Wow. So his was 17 minutes. It wasn't 10 minutes. 24 minutes is unreal.
That's nuts for a dolphin. I mean, they're used to that. It is true. And so here's the interesting thing. Just to break in, this is an important thing for everybody to really drop into with this one. Okay, so entrepreneurs, if you're out there, you're listening, the fact of the matter is you are stressed. And even if you think you're not, you are burning your candle at both ends with the blowtorch in the middle. Your adrenal fatigue, and if you put you on an HRV, like a heart rate variability machine, you will see just how out of whack your autonomic nervous system is. That's it's an important thing to realize, that we are all stressed to the max. And even if we're like in a nice happy space, our body and our subconscious, the ANS, or the autonomic nervous system, is still working overtime. And the thing is, it's really important for this, is the number one factor in longevity. The number one is lung capacity. So this big studies have been done with thousands of people over the course of decades, proving the number one factor. I mean, car accidents don't count. That's an accident. But the number one thing that will shorten your life more than anything else is losing your lung capacity. And here's the thing. When we turn about 30 years old, just like with our testosterone starts going down, our lung capacity starts decreasing as well. So by the time a person's 80, they usually have about 30% less lung capacity than they did at 30. Why this is really relevant is your lung capacity is completely under your control. Just like if you stretched for long enough, you could learn how to do the splits. You could. It would take a little while. But the thing is, that Croatian freediver, he'd only been training in breath holding for 3 years. before he did that. So I teach many of the exercises that help to expand the lungs and expand the volume that we can hold and help people have a longer, happier life because they increase their lung capacity. Never mind the inner power, never mind the meditation, never mind the stress relief, just that alone. And I teach that in my webinar for free. It's cool. It's really cool. Everybody's like, oh my God, what? And I'm like, yeah.
I feel like that alone is just worth going to your website, checking out the webinar, and literally understanding more. That's health is the most important thing in anybody's body, because when you're healthy, then everything else is better in life, right? Your family, your relationships, your business, but your health should be the most important thing that you focus on. So, Nate, you sign me up. I'm definitely interested in learning more. I hope I'm one in a billion people that can, put a blindfold on and see something like that. But, years and dedication. I don't think that's my talent, but I'm curious to see what it is, what your opinions are of that.
The cool thing is, it'll unlock whatever your talent is. So that way you don't put yourself in a box and like, I can only do this. I want to help people be unleashed. That's why the name of my webinar is actually Future Human Unleashed, because it's not about what the ancients did 5,000 years ago, because that doesn't do anything for us now in our individual lives. It's what can you do for yourself right now? And it's not about having more money. It's not about winning at blackjack in Vegas. It's about experiencing more as this consciousness, having a physical experience and doing it for as long as possible, as healthy as possible.
I love that.
I like the most that Nate, you mentioned, and I think this is really important because this is what shows that there's a level of legitimacy to the work you do, is you're not saying that everyone's going to be able to be having the capacity to see blind. But what you are saying is, and acknowledging, is that much like the X-Men, everyone has a special gift. And it's really about figuring out what your gift is and how to best utilize it. And ultimately, I think that's a really interesting take on how society can improve, right? Like, what if everyone was able to unlock their unique gifts, and we really just put people in that? It's like, this is your gift. You're going to be that. You're going to do that, and you're going to enrich the world by doing that. Do you think that as society will ever get to this point, or maybe once AI really kicks in and like everybody loses their jobs and their livelihoods, that we're going to start unlocking these parts of ourselves that have been long forgotten over years and years of, and what, centuries of I guess, information just buried?
It's already underway, man. It's already underway. And a lot of the people that are coming into a body now, a lot of them they seem to be coming in with knowledge that they couldn't possibly have, and maturity, even though they're in a body that is young. When I see parents who berate their little kids, and I just sit there and go, well, okay, but let's look at this from the 50,000 light year view. You're talking to an immortal, unlimited, eternal being who happens to be in a little body, doesn't know what to do, so they poop their pants and they cry because this is uncomfortable. But you may be sitting there talking down to and possibly denigrating a infinite being that might have more experience than you do, because we see that difference and we think, oh, okay. So that's the thing, is for people who are religious and they say, we have a soul or we have a spirit, right? What is that? I mean, like, literally, what is it?
On a religious standpoint, or just
from a religious, what is it from a religious standpoint?
Well, your spirit, in my opinion, it belongs to God. It always belongs to God. And the faith is, what you believe in this higher power, that you were there for the purpose of serving our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But mine comes from a Christian standpoint. But I think our physical bodies, I don't know the ultimate question of what's our purpose. What are we here for? But I think for mine is to do the best we can. And as long as I leave this world a better place by helping people, that's my vision and sought outness. I know that doesn't really answer the question for the spiritual realm, but my spirit belongs to Jesus.
Oh, it totally does. It totally does, Shane. And thank you for sharing that. Is it possible that we don't belong to God? We're just different pieces of God having experience? Because the reason I ask that is because if God is everything and everywhere, that means we're not just a part of him, we are him or it, right? It not to be grandiose about it. But the reason I really, really mention that is because I like to ask questions, because a mentor of mine told me once, and it's just stuck with me all the time since that moment. He said that having the right answer is smart, but having the right question is genius.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to ask questions. So is it possible that every single spirit didn't have a beginning or doesn't have an end? It's always been just like the creator has been. And we're actually, say, like probes of consciousness having experiences here on the planet so that God can know itself better. That's more of the Hindu take on it, not my own. That's a Hindu take. But it makes a lot of sense, though, that if we, every time we bully someone, every time we lift someone up, every time that we make love, every time that we're angry at someone, we're actually doing that to ourselves in a different, like not ourselves exactly, but a different part of ourselves. Like if you hit your thumb with a hammer, you still hurt your whole body, right? And then just, these are philosophical questions that people get to ask because so much of our time we spend unconscious on this planet. In neuroscience, we know that by the age of about 30 years old, 95% of our experience is nothing but pre-programmed behaviors, responses, and actions. 95 freaking percent. If anybody out there, if you've ever driven your car to work and you're like, wow, I'm glad my car knew the way because I wasn't even paying attention. We do that so much of our time that's one of the biggest benefits of mindfulness and meditation and breath work is to bring us into this calm center of awareness in the here and now. Not, we spend so much time as a whole, humans, just all of us spend so much time worrying about things in the past and putting our energy, our actual spiritual and mental energy in the past, either regretting things we wish we would have done or reliving things that we really were happy with. Or we've got it over here in the future, making plans or fearing what might happen. Neither of those is actually true. They're done. This one's over here. That's done. This one hasn't happened. So that means it's infinite possibilities over here, and we can't change what happened there. So bringing ourselves back into presence is something that is the most beautiful experience, whether you're praying, let's say you're Catholic and you're praying, whether you are Muslim and you're praying and bowing to Mecca, if you are a Buddhist and you're lighting your joss sticks and you're praying or meditating, or you're Hindu and you've got 27 gods or however many they have and you're praying to these gods. Being there, I had a student, to put this in framework, he was a Catholic priest, and he said, Nate, what is the difference between meditation and prayer? And I knew what he was going to say, but I wanted to hear what a priest was going to say about this because he was in my energy development class. It was kind of cool to have such an open-minded priest. Well, he says, Nate, prayer is asking God for something, and meditation is listening for that answer. You can't speak and listen at the same time. Prayer is speaking, meditation is listening. And I was like, right on. Right on, Father. You got it. And so that for me, that's one of the things that I love the most. And really, it's hard to be stressed out when you're in this present moment, unless you're like skydiving or you actually are being chased by a lion, then yes, be stressed out. That's the important thing. But as we know, when we stress out, our body doesn't know that that threat's not real. And we start pumping out the cortisol and all these hormones of stress, which break us down and shorten our life. And honestly, they make us more miserable because we're not, I mean, how much did depression and anxiety really affect people 100 years ago? I don't know, but it's not nearly as much as it is right now because we've got so much stimulus and we also have so much comparison to say, oh, I should be like them. I should keep up with the Joneses, or I should be like the Kardashians, or whatever it is, that we have the constant stimulus telling us we're less than, or that we're not good enough. And the thing is that none of us have this figured out. Not a single one of us has it figured out. We're all just, like
Amen.
the philosopher Ram Dass said, we're all just kids walking each other home. But sometimes we step on each other's laces or trip each other, push each other. Sometimes we carry each other on our back, piggyback style, to help. And sometimes we walk side by side. And sometimes we're alone, and sometimes we're with a big group. But the thing is that we're never actually alone.
Very, very well said. So, yeah, Shane, you got something else, or?
To be honest, I mean, I have a million other things, but I was going to ask for, some helpful tips and tricks to give to our audience that have, really listened to this story along the way. But to be honest, I think the best way of doing this is going to your website and listening to the webinar and kind of taking it from there, which I want to do. I really want to. I love the meditation and prayer aspect. I've also tried meditation on different levels with a variety of different teachers, and none of them have worked. I've never been able to get out of my own head. So I'd be very curious to see, how you do things, because I've always wanted to master meditation and find that inner peace, and especially help with breathing exercises. So I'm already in, Nate. This sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah, Shane, let's go support our new friend. We'll both jump in on the webinar.
Yeah, for the
It's
next.
happening Thursday.
Yeah. I'm in on Thursday.
Sweet.
Love it.
Well,
so Nate, we got to ask you, man, because we're getting close to time here, and obviously there's probably still so much we could go into, but we have two last questions for you as we properly wrap up such a fascinating story with such honestly amazing insights. One is, what is your version of a 1% lifestyle? Here on the podcast, we believe that being a 1%er is not just about having $1 billion, but being somebody who embodies wanting to step into that 1% within their own category. And I believe you are a 1%er in your spiritual field. So I would love to hear, what is a 1% life for you?
The most important thing for me is that awareness that I was talking about. And the reason why I consider that to be a 1% lifestyle is because so many people are very rarely, if ever, actually truly aware without judgment, and truly are the observer where they can learn. And so for me, I'm a consummate educator, but also a consummate learner. I will never be the master and the guru who is at the top of the peak, who says, I have nothing left to learn. That is not possible. It doesn't matter who it is, that's not possible. And so that's, for me, the most important thing, that I think every single one is a 0.00001%er, because we're all unique. We're all here to do something great. We're all here with a different talent. We're all here to learn different things. But until we step into that awareness, using our breath is the fastest way to bring that awareness around. It really is. As far as meditation, Shane, I got you. That's what I do, is I make meditation easy. But here's the thing. If people don't do it, they will never be in that 1%. It doesn't matter if they have $1 billion, because you know what? You can't take anything with you when you die. All you can take is your elevation of your consciousness and the way that you have become a better version of yourself, and what you've given back to those around you, and to your community, to your nation, to this planet, to the cosmos, and to the universe through your thoughts. And so that's what it is for me. That's a short story long.
I love it, man. Well, thanks a lot. And obviously you mentioned all the amazing things that people could do to get in touch with you and be a part of your community and learn, maybe not how to see without seeing, but their own unique skills and their own unique talents. Where can people find you? Websites, social medias, how do they get in touch? You do your call to action, my man.
Yeah. So my business is Integrated Ascension Method, or IAM. I wanted to choose something that was powerful. So I'm like, well, the name of God given to Moses on Mount Sinai, that'll work. so Integrated Ascension Method. My website is IAMPURE.ENERGY. So another one, I wanted to make sure it spoke truth, because we are. So IAMPURE.ENERGY, you can go right there. You'll have a pop-up come on, register for that. I'll send you out, first of all, a free course. And then I'll invite you to my in-person webinar, where you can actually jump on with me and a bunch of other people and start to really explore more of what you can do and who you really are. No belief involved, only experience and knowledge. And you'll have actionable skills that you will walk away and you will have for the rest of your life if you choose to use them, but only on the days you want to feel awesome.
We love it, Nate. Nate, thank you so much for dropping by, sharing your infinite insights with our audience, and teaching people a little bit more about maybe some of the less known secrets of the universe. I really love bringing people on like you to shake it up a little bit. It's outside of the norm of the business and mindset talks we have, but I think that that's warranted because there's so much out there that people don't even understand. And I believe your journey, your mission, and your story is one of those big underrated things that people need to know a little bit more about. So we really want to thank you for hopping on today and sharing your time with us, Nate.
I'm blessed and honored. Thank you for having me. And Ben, thank you for inviting me, man. This is amazing. And to everybody out there, have a great now and a great day on purpose.
Of course, my man. We appreciate you. As always, everybody, I'm your host, Vin. That's Shane. And wait, don't end it. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Go check out Nate, and we'll see you soon.
See you Thursday.